wasn't making a whole lot of money. I was working 7 days a week, and I went to go buy groceries at Walmart, and the debit card was declined, and I had to do like the walk of shame where you just have to leave all of your groceries on the conveyor and just walk back to your car.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Catholic Founders Podcast, where we discover how to run your business like a saint. We've got two asks for you today. Number one, if you're not already a subscriber, give us a follow on our YouTube channel so we can get towards 1,000 subscribers, which will allow us to be monetized. Hopefully we can get to that point, ka-ching, ka-ching, if you know what I mean. And if you haven't seen it already, we've got a new initiative called The Saintly CEO. This is a weekly newsletter that is free and that will help you learn how to run your business like a saint. Each email has two things: a 5-minute read that will help you insert the faith into how you run your business in under 1,000 words, and then a short list of other Catholic entrepreneurs to help you discover other Catholic founders and the work they're doing. It's totally free, so sign up today. Okay, guys, today's episode is genuinely fire, and part of that is because of the name of our guest's company, but a lot of it, most of it, is because of our guest, Rob Kaczmark, the founder of Spirit Juice. Spirit Juice is a video production agency helping Catholic organizations tell their story. They have worked with Knights of Columbus, Hallow, Ascension Press, and Jonathan Rumi. Rob's even won Emmys. In short, they've achieved a lot, but they're not done yet. Wait till you hear what Rob's long-term vision is. It's bold and audacious, and it's exactly what we need more of from Catholic entrepreneurs. We cover a lot in today's episode, but instead of teasing it, you're just going to have to tune in. All right, enjoy the show. All right, Rob, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm enjoying the fact that it's finally becoming spring in the Midwest. I feel like Chicago is probably a little bit warmer than here, ain't it?
Yeah, it's a little warmer. Yeah, if we get it's like hot and then like cold again. So just the consistency, it's consistently getting warmer, which
Yeah,
is nice. I've been riding the bike more, so
nice.
that's a sign it's getting nice out.
That's good. Yeah, for us, it was a little disheartening this morning. We went out and I was like, "What the heck? There's some snowflakes coming out again." I was like, "No, no, no, no." We had 70 degrees on Sunday, and I don't want to go back. So, but anyways, man, we could talk about the weather all day, but we're here to talk about spirit juice. So, I want to right off the bat get straight into things and ask you, why does so much of church media just look so bad?
I love talking about this, and the answer is because this is my opinion, obviously, but my opinion is that Catholics don't value and don't pay for digital media to look good. And so, like, just historically, if you look at stuff, and even some like the big players, Catholics buy books. Catholics buy physical media, but for some reason, when it comes to digital stuff, DVDs were a slight exception. When we were still in the land of physical media, that was an exception to it. But nowadays, streaming stuff, Catholics just don't. There's just not an association of like, hey, I should spend or support and spend good money on this. Now, there's a few players outside of that have, kind of been a bit more of anomalies. But historically, it's also like the church thinks in centuries, and it doesn't. It hasn't.
Hmm.
It was just really slow to adapt. When broadcast and stuff, all that took about. That's the short answer. I can go into it, the long answer, but I don't think they value the importance of it.
Well, that's interesting, I guess. So you're saying that they're not just skimping out on all products, but it was really just like the digital age. They just, were slow to adopt it because they didn't hire some Gen Zs to be, figuring out what the trends are or something.
Well, I guess so. Just to walk back a little bit, you look at Bishop Fulton Sheen, like he was on TV, won
Yep.
like a primetime Emmy or whatever that was, and like they're at the very beginning they got it, but I think as technology moved faster, I think the church got very apprehensive, and I noticed it too, even in my early days when Spirit Juice first started, and I had some advisors around as far as like what we should do and not. And MySpace was just starting, and I was like, "Hey, we should get on MySpace," and everyone was like, "No, no, no, we should avoid it." And so I think the church often sees new emerging technologies and is fearful and is slow to adapt, is slow to be on those, and at the same time slow to utilize that as well. And so I just think it could be challenging. I think the reason why a lot of Catholic content doesn't look that good is because we're just afraid of that
Hmm.
technology first, and we're like late adopters to it.
Do you have any particular opinions on how it ought to be? Like, do you think that's a good stance to have for the church because like you said, it thinks in centuries rather than, trying to like chase the trends, or would it be beneficial for us to kind of go in and take command of that space or, plant the Vatican's flag basically?
I think there's like a dichotomy because you look at like the LDS, Latter-day Saints and stuff. They, are have done a really good job using technology, especially for evangelization. And so I think on one level, it's good that the church thinks in centuries and isn't just like, oh, let's do this and chasing, whatever is the shiny object. I think where it could happen or where it should happen is the church itself should stay the course, but the laity should really take advantage of that and utilize that and be more agile. And I think you're seeing that now more than ever. The amount of stuff that I see from the laity that's just like, wow, that's really insightful. That's really good. I'm glad someone's doing that. But I think the challenging thing is it doesn't have the support top down. So I think the gap right now that I'm seeing is that like the church is doing what the church is doing, thinking in centuries. The laity and some of the laity is thinking ahead with this stuff, but the people in the church aren't necessarily thinking that that's a good thing and they should lift it up. And so I think if the leaders of the church could recognize some of these like new emerging technologies and support it, or at least say, yes, this is good that you are doing it, I think that could start to slow the gap. I also think too that like they're just not spending their money. Like if you look years ago and like the most beautiful art in the world was Catholic art, I can't imagine that was cheap or free. Maybe they got a couple deals here and there. And so they invested real time and resources. And so I think the church investing real time and resources into creating beautiful art that's modern, that's film, I think could go a long way too, because they'll set the standards. Like, oh, well, if the church is spending this much, then we should do it. But because it's such a disposable thing, it feels like, especially modern days, I think people have a hard time investing real money into that.
Yeah, because it's not like it's not some statue or church building, right? It's a little more passing, if you will. But it's so interesting though because there's so many good stories that need to be told in the church, right? And the church has the most beautiful stories, so why not put beautiful video to it, for example, right? So let me ask you this: how are you guys helping solve this problem of kind of like ugly church media?
Trying to solve it in a way where we make it, I would like to think, affordable, especially if you compare it to like sort of like what things cost commercial wise or the commercial sector. So doing it in a way that, most of the time we work with clients, they haven't made a video before, they haven't done this. And so treating it as in one part of ministry where we're caring for this, like, whatever their mission is, we're trying to share that in the most effective way. And do it, by sharing our talents. Like we have a lot of really talented people here that have been in the industry, and so we bring that professionalism to it. We shoot it on the same cameras that you're going to see, which nowadays isn't that big of a deal, but years ago it was a big deal. If you're shooting on a Red or an Ari, the whole industry, you can get such good quality out of a variety of things. And so, point is though, we're using top level equipment, top level talent. And then we're also doing it with a Catholic heart. And so we're trying to, bring it in and create stuff. There's a couple of times I was surprised that I knew what the client's budget is and I saw what the output was. I'm like, we did it for that much? It's like, yeah, and so there's a heart for it. There's a passion for it. Like my goal is to elevate Catholic media, to bring Catholic media. And there's a lot of other people doing it too that are doing a really good job. But, my part of it is to do that the best we can. And so, it's not one thing, just like when you watch a film, like what makes a good film, it's not just the acting, it's not just the story, it's not just the lighting, it's all those things coming together. And so I think what I like to bring towards it, and what Spirit Juice does is bringing all those pieces and having it work towards a single goal, which is elevating Catholic media.
Yeah, I think if you have the right objectives and you're aligned incentive wise, it makes a lot more sense, right? And I'm assuming we could spend probably all day talking about this. We won't, but there's probably many stories of people just wanting to come work for something that has meaning to it, rather than just kind of being in the secular world. So let's back up a bit. Tell us a little bit more about how you ended up starting this. We don't need the entire story, but I'd love to understand like the basics, how you got into it, and how you taught yourself this, and then let's go through the scale up journey.
Sure. A cradle Catholic. So, just as this background to growing up in the church, and always noticing that Catholic stuff didn't look as good as worldly stuff. So I got involved in ministry, was involved in youth ministry, which led eventually to getting the opportunity to host a radio show in Chicago. And so they had the show that's okay, it's a 30-minute show, and it's going to play Catholic music. Would you host it? And I was like, sure. I was like, well, what's the name? They go, it's called Spirit Juice. And I was like, that's a pretty good name. So I did that for a couple of years, while at the same time, I kind of stopped my other ministry stuff, but I was working full time, actually working at I still call it the Sears Tower, but you might know it as the Willis Tower. So I had a corporate job, and I was doing the radio thing, on the side. And so I desperately wanted Spirit Juice to become syndicated and be like a big radio show and stuff. But God had other plans. A few things came about, and that could be maybe a question at the end of because it's a pretty interesting story. And it stopped being a radio show, and I was still had this desire to create. So I kept making stuff, and I was like, I would make podcasts, or I'd make videos or graphics, and then there was an organization that saw that and said, hey, would you do that for us? They were going to hire me as like sort of like a media person, and I had no background, and this has all been self-taught. So I went to school for business just because it's a generic degree. So I was just kind of making stuff from what I could figure out, and I was like, well, what about if you hired me as a contractor instead of an employee? Because the Spirit Juice thing, I want to actually make that a company that serves the greater Catholic Church. And I know growing up as a Catholic, I've seen it. There's a lot of organizations like them that needed it. So they said yes. That was my first client, and I put my 2 weeks in at the corporate job. And I remember my boss thought I was crazy. I'm starting a Catholic media company, and well, 17 years later, we're talking.
So what year was that you put your notice in?
2007.
2007. Okay,
It was for if you're old enough like me, it was the year that Daft Punk was headlining Lollapalooza. And so I put my 2 weeks in and went to go see Daft Punk at Lolla, which was amazing.
nice. And then the recession hit, and you probably thought, "Oh my gosh, what did I just do?"
Dude, that was like, yeah, it was both bad and sort of good because the first is you don't know that starts a business. Like the first couple of years, you're not making any money. So I wasn't really making any money to begin with when it started, but it was really it was rough. It was rough, but it
Mhm.
was it gave some grit to the story.
Yeah. So as you grew the business, and if I understand correctly, you kind of taught yourself how to do this stuff, right? You taught yourself lighting and video, etc. How did you scale that up? So I'm assuming some people would come with some skills or maybe even some training, but as you grew, how did you do that? How did you make sure that people cared about what they were doing and that, maybe you trained people up to that kind of have that care that you had?
It's been challenging. I'll say that. I think, I look at it in a few different phases of the business. The first phase was I just did everything. And, I would try to connect with people that knew more than me to learn from them and mimic what they're doing. And, but it was, as far as like the care, it was easy because it was just me. So I was doing everything. So I knew I had the care. But the quality wasn't necessarily where I wanted to be. There was a gap of what I wanted to be, but what I was actually creating. And then, after about 5 years, I started to hire some employees, one at a time, not a bunch at once. And that was slow. And some of the employees were very green, and some of them, knew equal to what I knew, or even maybe a little bit more. And so that was, but then, that grew a little bit. But they all report to me. So regardless of whatever their skill was at, whether better than me, equal to me, or less than, I was checking it and making sure everything that went out had not just my stamp on it, but like I touched it. There's one gentleman who still works with us now, Brandon, extremely talented. But early on, he would edit something and then I would go over it. And he's like, well, I never really gave it my all because I knew you would just come in after and like tweak it. And so, which that stuck out to me. And so that the next phase was I was hiring people. So everyone would report to me, but I could only grow so much because I could only do so much myself. The next phase was hiring people that those people then reported to, or really in turn, some of those people hired the people that report to them. And so that was letting go. And so the biggest challenge that I think I had was letting go of what I'm doing, but still trying to impart that knowledge and that care to another person that maybe has someone else that reports to them. And so I think people step up to the opportunity in those ways.
So was it more so that when there was no like, I'm the buck, I will make sure everything stops here, that they just knew that they had to, or was there like, a little bit of trial and error? It's like, oh man, like that was really bad. Like we need to recover from this or solve it. Like, because this is, I'm not quite there yet in my business, but I see this issue coming at some point. It's like, how can I impart what I care about and how the quality of the work I do, how can I get other people to do that? Hey there, quick interruption. If your business is growing and you're looking for support, reach out to us today. My executive assistant, Karen, and I are helping virtual assistants in the Philippines get jobs with Catholic businesses, and we're calling it Paraclete VA. This is an opportunity for you to get strong support without breaking the bank financially. Doing this also helps Catholic VAs in the Philippines and other places get better jobs with employers that won't ask them to compromise their morals, something that, frequently happens more often than you'd like to know. Reach out with what you're looking for at dearcfpod@gmail.com, and we will find some top folks with the skills that you need. We'll present them to you, and if you hire somebody, you pay us a fee of $500, then $500 if you're still happy with them after 30 days in. Please note, we are not an employer of record, so we are not the ones paying them. You will be paying them as a contractor. We can help you facilitate best practices there, but we are not the employer. You will still be paying them directly. So if this is something of interest to you, reach out today. Again, dearcfpod@gmail.com with a little bit about what you're looking for and change the life of a family today. All right, back to the show.
It was really hard because it was always like the buck stops with me. And so I remember one of the employees early on, he goes, Rob, you have to let me fail. You have to be okay with me messing this up. And I was like, no, because it's like, whatever you want, my name's on it, or if something's, goes wrong, I have to, whatever, we lose the client and all this stuff. But he was right. I did have to let him fail. And so it was learning to let people fail and still be on the hook for their failure. Because if the employee messed something up and the client's upset, they're going to call me and I have to figure things out and smooth it over. So that was really challenging, and it was a lot of trial and error. It was like, okay, how about this and not this? Okay, you give too much. And so finding that sort of like Goldilocks balance. And then again, the more you grow, the more people you hire, the more you have to let go. Just the mantra I kept telling myself is, if you want to grow, you got to let go.
Nice rhyme there. How did the faith work with that experience? Because letting go and trusting is something we do with our faith. Like, did you think actively about this as you were going through that process in regards to the faith?
Probably not as much as I should have. Probably one thing I just don't do enough, and I reflect on that, is just like giving it to God. I too much think that I have to figure it out and solve it all myself. And so hindsight, I wish I gave more to God. I wish I said, God, this is yours. You take it. Not to say I didn't do that or never did that, but I always felt like, okay, this is on me to fix and stuff. So the faith also, it creates another layer to this too when you're managing people, because it's not just like what's the best for the business and sort of your own sort of like human emotion and how you take care of it, but you're also got to put the faith component on there too. And like, in what way, like how would Jesus react in this, or how would Jesus treat the situation? It is sort of another filter to run through. And I can't say that I've done it every time how Christ would have, but I've at least thought about it. And then life's all about just improving and getting better. And so, I think the best thing you can do, even if you mess up, is to reflect on it and learn how, okay, next time, how should I do this differently?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would like to ask you to think about it some more at some point and maybe make a framework, if you will, because I think that when you say this, my immediate reaction is, well, maybe if you would go back and do it again, you could talk to your employees about, because I'm assuming a lot of the people you work with were Catholic, probably, maybe not everybody, but most of them. It's like, hey, I'm gonna like bring up the faith in it and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be having faith in you to do this, but you need to also give your best work because we're doing this for the church or for our clients, and give it to God, type of thing. And this to me is a big challenge, and it's also an opportunity to help people grow. I don't know if you have any stories of this, because I work in recruitment, and a lot of times people only pay me to find people who have an existing skill set. There's not a whole lot of willingness to train. I mean, I know there's companies who will hire and train people, but it feels like more and more today, the complaints from candidates on the market are, man, nobody will hire me unless I have all of the experience. So have you had any experience with this where it's like, hey, we're giving somebody a shot, and how do you approach that, especially from a faith perspective?
Yeah, actually, I mean, we went through a huge. I mean, I think we still do it, but there's a lot of young filmmakers, so they've just graduated, and typically you could see some sort of promise in them, whether it's a quality work or just their ethic. And for us, we've seen this a lot in interns, so people that have come here for an internship, and then we're like, they have something, and so we will train them up. There's been, I mean, some of our top producers don't have zero producing skills outside of the company, but they know how to organize stuff, keep things together. I mean, there's just someone today. I won't say the name; it's not public, but she came in. She was a former teacher, and now she's going to become a producer. She's obviously worked her way up. So I really like to invest in people. I mean, I used to have the mantra of like, I want to make sure people are here as long as they want to be here. Obviously, as you grow, sometimes got to make sure people are the best fit in the right seat in the bus. But I think that's one of the qualities we do really well, is to try to train people up to where they want to be. Not every position has that, ability. Some positions just they need to be ready to go, and it's a balance too because we don't want to do it at the expense of a client who's paying us. Like it's not like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
client's paying us money, and then this person they're training it. It's like so it's a very sort of complex mechanism to do that to give people a shot and also not disappoint the client that's paying for the project.
Yeah, to me, it's the willingness to have to accept it. It takes some of your own investment in the person, and maybe even more time than you want, because especially when you're a small business, like you want somebody to come in day one and be moving, but it's investing in other people, right? Which is fundamentally human, and I think that we've dehumanized business so much today, where it's just people are just purely numbers and that's it, and we don't even mind laying off tons of people because the economy's bad and we got to make our shareholders happy, but all of these families are affected, and I think that this is on the opposite side of that, but it's also a component that I think matters a lot. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, talk to us a little bit about the, I guess, scale that you guys have reached today. What are some of the big metrics that you want to share with people on how you've achieved today?
So, I guess these are a humble brag or just a straight up brag, but we've grown the company to around 30 employees. We actually had more employees at one point, but we've kind of ebbed and flowed. Probably about 20 or so regular contractors that have like, a current contract with us. So a lot of personnel are physical headquarters. Most of the people, I would say 80% of people come into the office. It's around like 30,000 square feet. So we have a sound stage, two sound stage actually, full, it would be equivalent of a rental house, tons of office space, a big like, gathering thing. So, I'm very proud of what we built in that capacity. We've gotten to film in theaters. We have several YouTube channels that have been pretty successful, one with over 1 million subscribers. And, I think the thing, I was talking to someone recently, I said, one of the things I'm most proud of, and knock on wood, because this is something I have to fulfill every 2 weeks, but I've never missed a payroll. That to me, all those accolades are really good. Won a couple Emmys too, but like those are all really good. But what to me, what I'm very proud of is that I've never missed a payroll, and that may seem like silly or whatever, or maybe or not, but like making sure people are paid and never miss that because if you run a business cash flow is your number one stress, or at least for me it's the number one stress.
What are some of the kind of big names that you've worked with, just so people get a feel for it if they're not familiar with Spirit Juice already?
Probably the most notable would be Bishop Barron. We've done a lot of work with Bishop Barron over the years. I mean, we started working when he was still Father Barron. He was doing the Catholicism series. We were early. We didn't do the production for Catholicism, but we did some posts and some trailers, and then the relationship started there. So he's a big one. We've certainly done work with, Father Mike Schmitz. I'm just trying to think of big names. We've done some stuff with like some like A-list celebrity, but Jonathan Rumi, we did a film with him. We've done some promo stuff with Mario Lopez, Mark Wahlberg, some of like the Catholic celebrities, if you will.
Hmm.
And then we've done some work with Hallow in the past. And one of our biggest clients, who we just love working with, is Knights of Columbus. They really understand the importance of media and video, and so we do a lot of work with the Knights of Columbus, which you probably see them in your local parish.
Oh yeah, I used to work for the Knights of Columbus. Actually, I was an insurance agent for them for a year and a half, and I always complained about how they didn't give us a lot of resources. There would be occasionally like amazing videos that came out from the top office, and I was like, we need more of that stuff, locally. But no, I definitely have noticed like some of that stuff happening. So that's great. I wanted to set the table there because what I want to ask you next is there is, in my opinion, this the whole reason we're doing the show is there is a need to showcase Catholic entrepreneurs and to tell their stories in a certain way. So from your perspective, maybe I'll just ask you directly, how can I help better tell the story of other Catholic entrepreneurs or anybody else who's trying to do so?
Think about an instance early on when I was making a video, and I think the computer kept crashing, I just kept coming up with like these like issues, and I was like, God, why are you allowing this? Like, I'm trying to do your work, and I'm just coming up with like it was just constant problems. And reflecting on that, I don't know if it was something I got in the moment because this goes quite a years back, but the realization that it rains on the just and the unjust. God doesn't love me anymore because I'm doing Catholic work. I got the same problems that someone else is starting a business, and so I think to tell the story of Catholic entrepreneurs, as you had asked, is like sharing it that it's going to be hard, and it's actually probably going to be doubly hard because you're doing like faith component, and so there's just more that goes to it. But sharing the realness of it, and the problems that people have, and that it's okay. You're gonna get through it. Like there's if you have enough fortitude and will, you're gonna get through any problem that comes across. And actually, because it's doubly hard, you actually have doubly the advantage because you have God on your side. You have this, like, trying to get through life, as just any Catholic or faith-based person knows, without God feels crazy, right? And so, like, to run a business without your faith, to run it with your faith, you have so much more to pull from than a person, a non-faith based, a non-Catholic person.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think if entrepreneurs do it, Catholic entrepreneurs do it the way I view it is that we're given skills by God for his benefit, right? So if we are called to entrepreneurship in the first place, it's kind of, you and I both know it. There's just a certain itch that you can't stop. You kind of got to do it. I wanted to ask you about creating things, and we can talk about that another time, but it's just that you go because God gave you this itch to just go. And if he's calling you to it, why would he allow you to fail in a way that's, perdition, right? There may be failure, which is okay. He might be teaching us things through failure. When I started my business, I accepted the fact, hey, this could fail, but I'm not going to be tied to it, which is difficult for entrepreneurs because you kind of tie your identity to it. But speaking of the difficulties and the failures, what are some of like the darkest moments for you in building Spirit Juice, and how did you get through those, and how did your faith help you with that?
And a few darker moments. One of them I just shared recently about flying a drone in a church, and it basically cut up the guy I was with's hand, and it was blood all over, and that was a very kind of traumatic moment just in itself. And I was like, it just felt like too much stress than I could handle. So there's moments like that. I could share a couple other ones where just the amount of stress that was in the moment was just too much. But if I really get real honest, some of the darker moments was when, I mean, I think about one instance where, it wasn't making a whole lot of money. I was working 7 days a week, and I went to go buy groceries at Walmart, and the debit card was declined. And I had to do like the walk of shame where you just have to leave all of your groceries on the conveyor, and just walk back to your car. And I remember just being like, "What am I?" And with the other job at the Sears Tower, like I wasn't like it wasn't that it was well paying. I'll say that much, especially for 2005. I never had that issue, and so it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, God. I mean, I gotta start making a little bit more money. Like this is like it's just this is hard, and so those were some like those are some really dark moments when it was just me, where there wasn't a lot of like chaos around. It was just a quiet, dark moment.
And how did you come through that? Like, what was that? What's the end of that story?
I love Lord of the Rings, and I remember watching a sort of like behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, and Peter Jackson, who's the director of it, he was talking about it. And if you aren't aware, the first Lord of the Rings movies, not The Hobbit, but like, The Fellowship and Two Towers and Return of the King, it was all filmed together. They filmed it in one sit down, I guess you could say, which took about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. And so they're talking to Peter Jackson, said, tell me about this. Like, that's got to be so hard, like, to film for that long a time. Because most films, might film for like 9 weeks or maybe a couple months at most. And they're like, you've missed more than one birthday and family stuff. And he goes, "You're right. This has been very, very hard. It's been extremely challenging." He goes, "But whenever I'm ready to sort of give up or that, I think to myself, is there anything else I would rather be doing right now? Is there any other project I'd rather be doing? Anything?" And he goes, "The answer is always no. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing right now than making this film." And so I heard that early on before Spiritus even started. It just stuck in the back of my head. And so those times where I was ready to give it up, I'm like, okay, let's play that. I can give it up. What else would I go do? And I was like, shoot, there isn't anything else I'd rather be doing. So yes, it's just very hard right now. Yes, I wish the situation was different, but this is it. This is what I want to do. And it was luckily at the time when I wasn't making that much money, I wasn't married or had kids. I was just single. So, if I miss a couple meals, it's not going to be the end of the world. Or, and if I miss a payment here and there, I could make it up. It's not going to, I
Mhm.
didn't have that to concern me. So,
I appreciate the perspective on facing failure or stopping, because it's something I've often asked myself is like, what if an entrepreneur is too proud to let it go when it's time? And I mean, I guess it seems like you gave your answer, like, hey, would I rather do anything else? No, I'm just gonna keep powering through. Um, and I think it's difficult for some people if they're not really convicted, right? Especially if you're an entrepreneur deep down, like you'll do pretty much anything. Like you can find a way to make a buck, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes there may be a situation where you need to shut things down. But what are some of the ways that you run your business today that reflect the faith? Are there any particular ways that you kind of integrate the faith into the business?
I like to think that it's incorporated in a lot of different aspects, but something that's more tangible. So, like our staff meetings, which are weekly on Monday, we lead those in prayer. We have a chapel in our office, so that's part of sort of certain departments will lead certain things, in the chapel or have some chapel time. We've incorporated mass on a monthly basis now in the office. How does it look like, in the day to day? Again, maybe not as much as it should. A lot of times most of my days are caught up in just like trying to figure out this problem, this problem, this problem, but trying to just sort of like making sure decisions are made based not just on like what's best for the business, but also with the faith component, inside of that too.
That's helpful. I appreciate that. What about growth? So as the business grows, how have you decided like what's the measurement of how much am I going to invest back into the business versus hey, maybe we'll just kind of keep it here, keep the business where it is, and maybe give some dividends or some profit sharing to the employees. Like how do you think about that?
I'm early on, so before spiritual stuff. I used to be a mobile DJ or just DJ, so mobile because like I just do little parties and stuff. And my mom was sort of like I would say business partner, but she help me manage sort of the money and stuff because I get paid for something. And I constantly, I don't think I made a single dollar that I like spent on something fun. Every time I get a gig, I'd use that money to buy another piece of DJ stuff, another speaker, another light, or another turntable, whatever it was. I kept reinvesting it because I just wanted to like make it the biggest, best thing ever. And so think I've kept that mantra here with what we do. And so certainly, we generally operate on an annual basis for reviews and for raises and stuff. And, we don't do a profit sharing in that capacity, but we try to compensate people as they should be. So it's more of like a perpetual commitment to that employee as opposed to just like, hey, some of the profit sharing. So I think we probably reinvest pretty much it all back
Yeah.
in and create more stuff because we also have a not-for-profit, which is Spiritual Entertainment, which creates just original Catholic content. And we have some donors for that, some wonderful donors. However, it's primarily funded by Spiritual Studios based on the profits that we were making, in creating content in that capacity. So I actually probably have to temper my enthusiasm for reinvesting it into it because I just want to keep making more and more stuff. I see the need that's out there, and I have just a desire to create.
Well, let's talk more about that. So, if you want to keep growing it, like, what is the vision then? And I ask this question because I'm somebody who dreams pretty big now, and I oftentimes wonder, like, is that just me? Is that my own kind of pride or desire for recognition, or is it something that God put in me that I'm like being a channel of? So, how do you think about vision and communicating it to your employees, and where will you stop, basically, kind of thing?
Well, and I think just for on your side, I think it's both. I think God put it in us, and we also have this like desire to do it. And I think I don't think it's bad. I don't think. I mean, obviously it's not bad. I think God put it in us, but I don't think it's bad for us to want that. I think it's usually on the how. And so, yeah, I have very big ambitions. I mean, like the big picture is that it's I don't want to say the size of Disney, but the scope of what Disney does in the sense of like they have feature films, they have TV shows, they have stores you can go into, they have real life events or theme parks rather. And so I want to create something that what I learned early on is that what the world shows us usually leaves us empty. And what the church and what God offers brings us fulfillment, but oftentimes it's in not the package. Like it doesn't look the prettiest sometimes. Going back to the original thing of why Catholic content looks not the best. And so I would love to and nothing I'm suggesting replaces mass or the sacraments or anything like that. That's obviously at the highest tier. But having something where you could feel like you're living your faith out in a way that's also fun and through content, through a variety of things. And so I try to set the vision pretty big, but also not give everyone all the pieces all at once. It's like, hey, here's what we want to do next year. We want to put out a XYZ, or hey, we're going to build this here, like that. And so casting a big enough vision, but not so much so where people just think that like I'm just like saying crazy things of like, oh yeah, Rob wants to start a theme park. Okay, when are we going to do that? So just like knowing what information to give at certain points, and when to give the big grand view of things, and when to give like, hey, here's what we're focusing on next to really make a big splash.
You got to stop just short of Adam Newman vision speaking. But when you talk about these big visions to people outside of the company, I mean, I don't know how frequently you do this, but how does that feel? Because when I talk about my dreams and ambitions, a lot of people just look at me like I'm absolutely crazy, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's definitely full of himself."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's natural. I mean, if anyone, regardless, unless they're like, something that's uber successful already that has done the thing, anyone that's saying they want to do something like really big that hasn't done it is going to be like, okay, even if they are pretty successful in their own right, you're like, okay, yeah, you've done that, but like what you're talking about is wild. I think there's a balance of like not just being all talk and then like not delivering, but at the same time, if you don't talk about what you want things to go, because I think people get excited about that, and I think yeah, you might get half the people you tell think you're wild and crazy, but you might the other half that's like, hey, I really like that. I want to be part of that, and so I think the more you talk about it, the more you get comfortable talking about it, and the more you're able to articulate it in the best way. So for a while I would be I don't say fearful, but like, oh, I don't want to say it because I don't want to say it like, I don't want to say it too boisterous, or I don't want to say it too timid. But the more you talk about it, the more you're able to articulate it and learn like, okay, how should I say it? And so I think it's good practice, and not like, honestly, the blunt answer is like, you're not that important. I'm not that important. So they're going to forget about like whatever they think in the moment, whether they think you're crazy or not, they're going to forget about you. Most likely they're going to forget about you 10 seconds after you walk away. So it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's easy to get in your head about these things, right? Because it can feel existential in the moment, but it's really not, and that's maybe its own issue of pride you have to deal with. So now that this is a similar topic, is now that you are in this position of leadership, how do you've told me kind of some of your takes on this. I'd like you to share with the audience is how do you view owning that kind of like I've been put in this leadership role and I'm going to live it. I'm going to really lean into it. I'm not going to kind of shy away from it.
It has to be very intentional. I've struggled with it a lot of feeling that like when you start something from scratch and you have to do every single job, you don't feel like you're the boss. Like when you've, cleaned the toilets for 5 years and done everything, like whatever level task is, like you just done it all. It gets molded into you. So it's hard to think of like, oh, I'm the leader now, or I'm the CEO. Like it took a long time. It was actually encouraged by the staff to be like, you should call yourself the CEO. I'm like, I don't know, that feels a little too whatever. And so, when I say it has to be intentional, it's like, no, if I just kind of like pause time, take a step out, it's like, okay, I'm the CEO of a company, whether I think I am or not, or I'm qualified or not, like that's who I am. So I have to act like that and know that my words carry weight. And, early on I could say things in a little bit more of like a frivolous manner, but as I've grown and as I've had more responsibilities, I realized, no, the way I say things does matter, and how I carry myself does matter. And so the more I'm intentional about that, the more I'm intentional about how I spend my time, what I'm doing. I often found myself doing things that like only I thought I can do. It's like, no, I have to take a step back. Is this the best way I should be spending my time right now? It's a question you have to continually ask yourself as you grow, because people are always looking at what am I doing and how am I acting. And so if I'm not aware of that, I can find myself doing things that not necessarily like immoral, but just things where I'm like, they're seeing their leader do X. Should I be doing X right now?
Hmm. So would you say that broadly, it's maybe helped you be more aware of your actions? Kind of like people say, hey, think about your angels watching, like kind of similar to that, where it's like, hey, I've got a little bit of pressure, so I have to perform a little bit better. I have to be more focused on kind of like really living the faith.
Yeah, I mean, it's you could not, but then don't be surprised if people around you, like there was a quote I seen, like if you're in like 20 feet or 30 feet of a high performer, your performance is likely to increase by like 10%. And so I could not care about all this stuff and whatever, And I'm not saying I do a perfect job by any means, or hopefully I do an okay job. But if I'm not even caring at all, then like I shouldn't be surprised if the people around me aren't, are reflecting that. So
Mm.
like in the same way, if you look at a family, if you look at an overweight kid, right, a young kid that's overweight, most likely their parent, one or both of them, are overweight too. And so if you what you present, and at the same time, if you find a child that's like fit and in shape, most likely their parent is that. And so if I need to set the example both about what I'm doing and how I appear and what and all that. And so like whether you're a parent or whether you're running a business, people are looking at you and they're going to mimic how you act, your behavior, your cadence. When you get stressed, how are you reacting to it? And if you yell and scream, they're going to assume that it's okay to yell and scream. If you, whatever that is. And so there's so much intention that I try to incorporate and try to bring towards just my actions. And again, like I don't do the best job, but at least I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to improve it. And it's like, and it's like, okay, I did that wrong. Next time I'm going to do it differently.
What about community for being in the situation? Because you've grown a very successful business. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're part of the Scent community. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or before you joined that, did you find a lot of other Catholic entrepreneurs, or how did you build that, or is Scent like the only solution for you?
SEM was the only solution that was like sort of like national in a way where like it brought people in. I mean, certainly there was folks that I knew in different organizations, but it wasn't in the same sort of capacity that's what Scent offers, which is, facilitates this network and these meetings and stuff. So they really were filling a need that I don't think was filled by anything else out there. I mean, there's other, Protestant groups that have done similar things and stuff, but on the Catholic side of things, they really filled a gap that was very much needed out there.
How important was that community for you then? Like having other peers that you could talk to?
It was really helpful for me. I mean, I'm still part of it, and it's still helpful. But it was really good to be able to talk to someone else because like if you run a business, it's just a different. I don't say it's a different life, but like there's just some things because even just we're the building we're in, there's other businesses that are connected, and so I talk to some other business owners, and there's just these things that like we all just get. It's like, yep, I get that. And so if you don't run a business, even if you manage a lot of people, there's still just a few things that like, so having that and then having the faith part of that, it was a really, like, I knew I wanted it and needed it, but having it was like, okay, this is really good. This is really important. And it's the reason why, I've been in it for, I think 3-4 years. I can't even
Yeah.
keep track now. So,
Yeah, this has been a challenge for me because it seems like it's hard to find these people in person. It's usually easy to find them online because the ones who are online, they're pretty findable, and then you
mhm.
become friends with these people. But I hope we can build more of this community locally. Let's wrap up with this. So we kind of brushed over it, but you didn't really plan to build a business, right? You weren't like a business person per se, but you fell in love with it over time. How should people who are maybe thinking, hey, maybe I should start a business, maybe a Catholic entrepreneur, or Catholics who are just not sure if they want to be an entrepreneur, how would you recommend that they discern whether or not they're called to do something like this and how to go about that?
I would really encourage someone to listen closely to what God's put on their heart. And so for me, and to observe just their perspective on life. So for me, it was observing that Catholic visual media was not to something that I thought it could be better. And so I just felt like, and I just been unwavering in that desire to do that. And so if someone's, I guess it depends on if they're trying to create a Catholic business or just create a business and they live their Catholic faith through it. I think you have to be passionate about it. I found myself throughout the years of like getting a little distracted by, quote unquote side hustles or things that are just like, oh, that might make some money. That might make things, bring a little few bucks in here or there. And they've all fizzled because I just wasn't passionate about it. Whatever it was, I just wasn't passionate. And if you ever listen to Gary Vee, this is, what he talks about is like find something you're passionate about it, even if it doesn't seem like it's the most lucrative, because you will make it successful based on your passion. And so if you're passionate for something, and also if you're okay with losing it as a passion, in the sense of like, it's one thing like I love BMX and I love like, fixing bikes, riding bikes and stuff, but it's not a business for me. And so like if I made it a business, I'd have to be okay with losing that as like my like
Mm,
fun passion. So if as long as you're okay with what you're passionate about and you're okay it being like a job and something that you are willing to put every ounce into, then I think there's got some real legs to explore it. Also, to be just thoughtful of like, is this like, could this generate money? Like, there's certain things that's like, okay, you might be passionate about, there might be a need for it, but like, it's just not going to pay the bills, or at least not very unlikely. However, I think that's pretty small nowadays. There's so many opportunities and people are willing to support and have desires for that. So I don't know. I would lead with the passion first, and make sure you have enough endurance, because if you easily are afraid of things or easily get like disheartened, entrepreneurship's not going to be good for you.
Yeah, it could be a rough go. I mean, it's already a rough go even if you have endurance.
It's
It'd be
true.
worse. But all right, man, this has been awesome. Tell us just slightly more about like what are all of your offerings and who do you guys work with, just in case anybody's listening is in need of some support.
So if you need a video, whether it's a social media video, whether it's a fundraising video, whether it's a documentary, whether it's a narrative film, whatever it is, we can create those videos for you. However, if you're like, I don't need any videos, but you're Catholic and you like to watch videos, well, we have that too. So Spirit Juice, we have a ton of free Catholic content on that, mostly on our YouTube. And then if you have kids and you want to share the faith with your kids, like 3 to 7, younger kids, we have a great YouTube channel called Juicebox or Spirit Juice Kids. And we put videos on both those channels a couple times a week. We have tons of new content. So I'd encourage anyone that want to watch it, check out our YouTube. Or if you want to hire us, you can send me a message.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely need somebody to compete with Bluey and that stuff. I'm not a fan. So thanks so much for coming on, Rob. This has been a pleasure.
Hey,
I'm really
thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing you become the Catholic Disney. All right, but actually Catholic, All right, take care.
Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed this, leave us 5-star review on whatever podcast player that you use. And if you're not already, help us to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube so that we can get monetized. We're really hoping to get there someday. It might be a while, but if you help us, we can get there sooner. And be sure to subscribe to The Saintly CEO, our weekly newsletter that in under 1,000 words will help you run your business like a saint and help you discover other Catholic entrepreneurs with a curated list of these folks, people that you can meet, people that have the same mindset as you, and you can network with them. And finally, if you're looking for a group of Catholic entrepreneurs, consider joining our Catholic Founders Peer Group or the Catholic Founders Guild. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. Just go to our Substack and upgrade to paid. You'll also get access to our paywalled content as part of this. It's a really great way to just find other people that are working through the same problems as you, speak with them on a monthly basis or whatever you need, and just get some download from them. People that actually share your faith and who are building with God in mind as well. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. God bless, and see you next time.